Hi, my dear gentlemen. Once again, this podcast is to go deeper to truly understand your motivation for your achievement, your motivation for your pursuit. And if we were to go really deep into this topic of what is success without self-betrayal and what defines true winning in life without losing yourself. And I can make this strong disclaimer that everybody wants to win in life. We want success, but many want success, but few truly ask what is it really going to cost them and at what kind of cost. Of course, as we do know, there are pursuits that are worth pursuing, and for sure it come at a cost. Then again, not knowing what the true costs are, how much are you willing to lose them? Because the biggest failure here is not about losing. It is when you become successful and then you realize it's not who you really want to be. So once again, let's go into our POA podcast of let's define further of what truly is self-betrayal. So like small compromise is the little things that the mistakes that we make, and we tell ourselves, okay, never mind, it's okay. Maybe waking up late or just coming up with some small white lies to just move forward in life. And the question of we all do have values that we cherish, whether it is openness, honesty, authenticity, or alignment, dignity, and pride. And sometimes when we want to pursue further in achieving certain things, the values that truly holds dear for us will kind of like being put aside for the moment. And I'm not talking about full ignore and not attending to them, but just putting aside for a while. And before we know it, we're tucking it in further and further. And before we know the life that we are building and living becomes a chase of approval. And there are many times, in fact, when you are being offered something that you do not want, the first thing is to, okay, no problem. But whereas, in fact, deep in ourselves, we could have just said no. Because sometimes knowing the right thing versus choosing the right thing is never easy. And to be disconnected is not about pretending that we are okay, but knowing that we are not okay and not being able to show it. And how this happens, because in many society, especially in our fast-moving society here, whether you are watching in any parts of the world, and if you have internet and YouTube, we do know that the society rewards outcome, less of character. And where the success becomes tied down to the person's identity, we label that person, oh, whether he or she is successful or not depends on what he or she has achieved. And there's this constant comparison of net worth, material gain, credibility, the willingness to hustle harder, chasing the next milestones. And all these are good, don't get me wrong. Ambition and drive can keep the person alive. But to a point where it is never enough, and that's where that pursuit of more becomes addictive before we know it, and busyness replaces true purpose. So I share a bit about my own personal reflection over this season and why I started this podcast also to journal my journey and to share with like-minded men or whoever is listening out there. Because there was a point where I was so busy building the business, but I forget to build myself. And I wanted this recognition so much so that I can be perceived as the savior who goes around helping people, being of service, saving and rescuing people. And it was so tough at the expense of, for example, I can help that person so much that I end up compromising myself, losing sleep, probably skipping a few meals, sacrificing family time, and probably even touching to the areas of my own integrity where things were not right, but somehow I will navigate around and make it seems like it's okay for me to just move forward. And this is where the priorities of me being able to perform becomes bigger than me being present and fully aligned with myself. Because let's put it this way, there will always be more to create in any areas of our life. Then again, when the pursuit of more starts to eat into our areas that are truly important, but not really valued by society, so how balanced will this seesaw eventually become? Because I look at some tangible things like achievement and let's say money. Money itself usually is a very strong indicator of success and achievements. And the bigger the outcome of the money will then determine how much I want to put effort into it. That is quite common for a lot of people. But then again, how much then is enough? Because to use that amount of money, then again, to buy back the peace that we want to have in the first place before we started. Because sometimes that money cannot buy back the peace that we used to have. And realizing that if you can fully align and just pause for a while to seek where the true direction is, where peace and we can still pursue with purpose rather than pushing ourselves through us unsustainable pressure. Don't get me wrong, pressure builds diamond in most character. But when a person is disconnected or misaligned with themselves, the capacity, spiritual, mental, and physical capacity often gets compromised to an extent that the anxiety starts building up. And the men usually will probably numb themselves with food, with vices, with probably with women, and probably buying things and alcohol or other substances just to curb and cause that feeling of anxiety. It's not to heal the anxiety because body is an indication of the pace that we are moving in our life and the direction. So when the anxiety happens, usually it is a pace that is unsustainable. But we do know that the difference between pushing ourselves a little bit further rather than at a pace that is unsustainable, because the man who goes to the gym and work out and push himself and enjoys a healthy meal is more sustainable than the man who overexerts himself, end up going through that pain. He hides in a corner and stuff himself with a tub of ice cream. And as the metaphor goes, you see, the feeling of success at some point of time for a lot of men, when I personally have experienced that, when I reach a certain level of success and achievement and project results, but somehow there were probably corners that were being cut. There were lies that were being told, and there were relationships being compromised. To an extent, the discomfort is stronger than the feeling of the accomplishment itself. And where the gap becomes so wide in between, that's where I need to numb the gap and just tell myself it's okay, ignore what has been trampled over, just focus on the winning and celebrate. But how much do we truly see that as a genuine win? Because the man who wins with guilt can never fully find his rest. And as relationship over time becomes transactions, whether it is with people or maybe in relationship, what can she give me instead of what can I offer to the table for us? It becomes more and more transactional. Oh, I give more, she should give me more back. And it becomes a game of competing. And there are couples in a healthy relationship where they compete among each other, especially in maybe in their line of work where they are so-called friendly competitors. And if they can constantly find that alignment towards a common true purpose, and I think a healthy competition can be great. But the difference then, it becomes transactional. Then sometimes we need to ask ourselves, what is the lens that we are carrying? Or has the lens in our vision, our relationship with people become so tinted that we don't even recognize that we are wearing one? So, what is whole integration? Whole integration, in summarize, is the alignment between our heart, our spirit, our mind, our body. That's everywhere is in agreement. No, there's this peace and there's this flow of life. Whereas, if let's say, for example, my my heart tells me this is not right, but I pushes my body and I convince my brain to tell me it's okay, that misalignment, that gap will start to be hidden because it's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to constantly feel discomfort. However, staying in discomfort can tell us a tale and eventually develop into wisdom where the misalignment is. So, have you ever met and speak to people and ask them, hey, how's your day? And they say they're fine, but somehow the energy is not. But I know it's a very kind of automatic response. Hey, how's your day? Good. How's yours? It's an automatic response when the person doesn't really want to connect. They just want to, say the right thing and just move on. But for someone who is truly dear in your life, or maybe if you can start off with yourself, are you truly fine today? Have you been trying to live up to somebody's expectation of you, including your perfect expectation of yourself? So as men constantly compromise and pursue that, what is the cause here? The spirit that we stand for loses the peace, shakens the identity, and sometimes question why we are doing what we are doing. And for relationship wise, the people who are dear in our life gets the leftover because, like for example, my children ask me when then I'm free. Then the answer will be very simple. When I'm not working, then I will spend time with you. Versus I'm committed to spend a day of the week with you. So it's very different. I think a lot of entrepreneurs get caught up when I'm working very hard for my loved ones, whereas their loved ones gets the leftover of their work. So how is that a priority for them to run their work? And I think it is not uncommon in our society. And I must say that some of these men truly work very hard for their family. However, sometimes when the work gets caught up and the purpose gets diluted, it can be a very conflicting situations where I can scold my family for misplacing my family photo. And you see, that is a very, very fine line. What's really going on, depending on the intent itself. And over time, relationship becomes transactional, as mentioned. The clients that we serve becomes numbers or a project to deal with. As we are spending time with friends, we are just simply networking. So how about our body? If you take a breath and recognize the body, where is the stress that's really building up over time? A lot of men out there probably get neck strain or shoulder tension, or maybe even very shallow breathing in the chest, or maybe even some other areas. And the need to sleep more and more hours, or feeling guilty when resting more than enough. That could be a possible sign of burnout. And only you yourself know when you quieten yourself. Oh, I only slept 3 hours last night. For the past three years, I only slept 4 hours a day. Some nights, I work until 3 a.m. And the pride of telling others that I sleep less because the guilt of resting more is unbearable. And it's amazing that there are unhealthy communities that encourages others to be in bad health to show that they are working harder. And whereas a well-rested man in good health doesn't seem to be getting the kind of respect right now in society. And this can be very, very upsetting and challenging. And as the man works so hard to build his legacy, to pass down for the next generation, or to build a better tomorrow for his future self, do we want to look back at the journey and just mark at the points where so-called significant achievements are remembered? What about the character and the self that we have become on this journey of growth and building? So some alignment question you may want to ask yourself, instead of how can I make more, consider asking more deeper questions. Who am I becoming on this journey of growth? How clear and aligned are my true values? And can I be proud of myself if the whole world knows about the transparency of my journey, including probably my loved ones who are no longer around? Would I still do this if I would not be recognized by anyone? And find that distinction between character and presentation. So some areas quickly to just for you to touch on and to audit the areas of your work, which I believe a lot of men spend time on, focusing on the level of your integrity versus the income, looking at the health of your finances, whether there is genuine wealth being built, not out of greed nor fear. Your relationship here, are you seeking validation and incentive other than unconditional connection? And are you truly putting your body, the health and fitness first, rather than a hustle and to show? And finally, aligning with your purpose that you yourself can applaud without any other form of external acknowledgement. So some practical steps: learn your non-negotiable. 3 tips to just take away. Define your non-negotiables, like your sleep, your meals, your rest. Learning how to say no to appointments, meetings, or maybe even events that truly means nothing for you to really build your alignment. And finally, take stock. Take a weekly inventory, okay, of your health, your mental health, your spirit, not just how much you have made for the week. And also can be responsible to do a relationship audit with your loved ones. So the 4 dimensions here we are looking at: your achievements are what you built, your alignment is why you built, your integrity is how you build it, and the peace is who you become as a result of this journey. So let's not always put success only when we reach the destination, my friends, as we learn to build ourselves the character that is completely intangible but matters to the most important person in your life, that is you. And there are so many well-presented person out there. You truly do not know what is the story that's inside them. And as we live in the world of social media, every 5 second, 10 second, there can be images and presentations of feats that can fuel less than and envy. Go back to your home, my dear friends. Find out what you truly matters on this journey of progression. Be responsible to the first person that matters the most in your life, that is to yourself. And in alignment, every breath you take, who are you becoming on this journey of growth? As all of us, we are never too old to grow, never too young to take a new step forward. And I'm very happy to speak to you. I push myself happy. And yes, I look forward and I hope you can share this podcast probably to someone you know who are facing probably a burnout, and trust that that person's future and purpose worth a lot much more than the current life that they are just relentlessly chasing. And I'll see you soon.